All right, all right. So we'll let some people jump on here. Excited to have everybody on the call here today. We're going to make the most of our time together. This is our Airbnb Expert Panel call, picking the right model, avoiding common mistakes, analyzing deals like a pro, and building a world-class hospitality team, really just in general, helping you guys arm and equip yourself with more income, active and passive wealth building, generating opportunities moving forward. So I brought a couple of my buddies, mentors, and friends in the hospitality space to really be a resource and share their experiences with you, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and everything in between, in addition to giving you guys live Q&A access to them. You know, the best thing is to get all the answers to the questions you want to know. Mentorship has always, in my opinion, been one of the greatest ways to hack your way to success and achievements, avoid mistakes, tap into other people's networks, resources, wisdom, things that would take you and I a really long time to figure out. Let's just go straight to the source. So that's who we have here on the call today. Let me double check and make sure that we are not missing my man. Where's Ernesto? All right, so I think Ernesto is going to be jumping on here in a second, so we'll be sure to get him on. But know that if you guys have a question, first and foremost, let's just make sure everything's working well, and put in the chat bar where you're tuning in from, what you're most intrigued by about Airbnb. And if you have a question, I'm going to make sure to earmark those and kind of pepper those in accordingly. So feel free, any question at any time, to put that in the chat bar. So we got my man David from Tampa, Florida. What's up, David? Locked and loaded from Scottsdale, from Jalen. Cool. All right, so you guys are hearing me loud and clear. I'm going to kick it off first and foremost with our panelists on there's Ernesto. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to kick it off with our panelists, and tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do or what you specialize in, where you're from, and we'll kick it off with my man, Austin Linney.
So I live in San Antonio, Texas. I've been in hospitality for 20 plus years. Started when I was 17, restaurants, hotels. Been doing Airbnb for about 5 years. Started out renting out my air mattress. Seriously, that's how we started. Moved up to a day bed. That was a big up. And then started renting out the whole house and kind of grow it out. Done Airbnb in 7 states, all around Florida, Texas, around. Clean the toilets, done the whole deal. So my goal is to help y'all not make the same mistakes I made. That's the main goal. Save you about a couple years.
If anybody has succeeded at a really high level and got their ass kicked and their teeth kicked in a few times, it's my man Linney. Linney has helped me in so many ways with a lot of my hospitality stuff. So grateful to have him here on the call. Let's turn it over to my man, Mr. Stephen Glaude. Stephen, can you hear us? Or unmute yourself?
I think I was muted there just a moment ago.
There we go.
Good afternoon, everybody. Stephen Glaude here from sunny California. I've been in the hospitality business, more specifically Airbnb, VRBO, going on 2 years. I basically run about 9 local properties here in the Sacramento region. Started this off as a way to supplement my income as far as cash flow goes. I'm also a licensed realtor, flip properties, pretty much anything and everything real estate, but really found a niche with short-term rentals, AKA Airbnb, and love everything about it. And I'm here to help and answer any questions you may have.
Awesome. Appreciate having you on the call, Stephen. I'm going to throw you on mute in the meantime. And we got my man, Ernesto. What's up, brother? You're on mute as well.
What's up, guys? Little tech difficulties with my iPad, so I'm coming to you live from my car. I apologize.
There we go.
Sounds like everyone's doing an intro. I'm Ernesto. I live in Oakland, California right now. I'm the newbie, so I want to kind of set that straight from the beginning. I don't have a lot of properties right now. I think what's unique about me is that I'm doing it long distance. I live in Oakland. I do everything remotely. And my unit that I have so far is in Indianapolis. I took a healthy amount of training before diving in. I chatted with Mr. Austin Linney quite a few times. He gave me a lot of inspiration to take the leap, and so far it's been a good learning experience, and so far so good.
Love it, man. I love it. While we got you, Ernesto, before you mute yourself, why Airbnb? What about this model intrigued you, and why push into this model?
Good question. I really like the cash-on-cash returns. It is relatively low barrier to entry. That's kind of a good and a bad thing, right? There's a lot of people that are doing it, but the reality is there's not a lot of people that are doing it well. And there are some markets that are still trending positive year over year in terms of revenue increases and things like that. Why Indiana in particular? The state of Indiana has actually legalized Airbnb at the state level. So you're not going to run into a lot of the red tape that you're seeing in cities across the country. And the city of Indianapolis itself is actually the second largest convention city outside of Las Vegas. And so they host a ton of conferences year in and year out. And so those were just some of the reasons why I decided to finally take a stab at this.
Love it, brother. Appreciate it. And I'll pass that question over to Mr. Linney. Why did you get into Airbnb? And what was it about the model that's been so intriguing to you? And has it proven to be that and then some? Has it fallen short for you? What are your thoughts on it?
What day of the week is it? No, but you know, for me, really for us, it was the way we traveled, right? And we like that. And when you have it at a smaller scale, there is a lot of that. I still have, you know, guys that I hosted at my house that live in Australia. That's a friend, right? And so like you love that. Well, when you get on scale, that disappears real quick. So then it turns into a full-on business. The things that I do love is that if you're targeting the right areas with the right property, you know, just a perfect example, the first big win I had ever was I had 3 houses at the time, and we did 21,000 in March because of Final Four and spring break. And then you're like, holy crap, like this is a lot of money. And then you're like, okay, this is great. And then so like, you know, I've almost shut down my personal houses twice because if you allow the guest and you attach yourself to their problems and you don't have systems, this business can run you over really quickly. That's the thing that you have to understand. You have to put barriers in place. You have to put systems in place. And that's where, you know, running into somebody that's a little more experienced can kind of walk you through those things because it's not a long-term rental. It's not. The guest is not going to just disappear. He's not going to sign a lease and walk in. Now, that being said, I have instructed people that if you are making 400, let's say 350, maybe $400 cash flow, stick with that. Like you really have to be making, you know, 750, 1,000, $1,500 extra in order to take on that extra responsibility. So it's something that I'm really harping on now that people are just, they want to get in it. Right. And I respect that, but make sure it's the right property.
Well, and we'll definitely be talking about how to analyze the right properties and whether the juice is worth the squeeze and all that good stuff. So, I'm going to go ahead and swing over the question to Steven in the sense of, Steven, tell us a little bit more about what is the model that you are currently operating under. Is it a hybrid model? Is it one core model that you're sticking to and that's your one thing? What's your Airbnb or hospitality model?
You know, initially when I first started this business, I was in the Airbnb Arbitrage model where I would simply basically rent the property and then sublet on to Airbnb with the permission from the homeowner. The reason why I started with that model is because I didn't have any experience. I didn't have anything that I could show my investor partners why they'd want to work with me. So that was a way for me to alleviate any concerns about them basically making their rent on a monthly basis and make sure their expenses are being covered. But over the course of, probably 12 months, I've basically flipped that model to a co-hosting model where, it's a 70-30 split. So 70% goes to the investor partner and 30% goes to Instant Hotel as a aspect for managing that property.
Got it. So you like the Airbnb Arbitrage to start low barrier of entry for a lot of people that maybe don't have the ability to buy a property or take down a property, or they don't own a property. It's a great way for them to get started, right? What were some of the downsides that you saw in that model that really got you pivoting to greener pastures, maybe?
Probably just the amount of overhead. If you're utilizing the Airbnb arbitrage method, at a certain point, you only can carry so many leases, so many PG&E accounts, so many internet accounts. And, if you run into a slow couple of months, and if you're carrying all those expenses, that could break you. That could put you under and put you out of business. So I realized that if I wanted to scale with this business, the only way I can do so is to go with the co-hosting method, where I could basically do a 70-30 split.
And while we're talking,
so I recommend.
Go ahead. Finish that.
I was going to say, for those who are thinking about getting into this and don't have a property of their own, I think the Airbnb arbitrage method is probably the best way to enter into the business. It's a low entry point per se. You're basically cash flowing on someone else's property, so you don't have to own real estate. But with that in mind, again, if you want to scale, if you want to grow that business, it's going to be cumbersome to do so.
Absolutely. And if for somebody that's going, okay, I like the sound of that, where do they start? What did you do to kind of run and crunch numbers on the model to make sure that it really made sense for you?
It was twofold. I mean, basically I'd go onto like Facebook Marketplace and look at rentals, look at properties that I thought would be good, Airbnb properties based upon their location and the condition of the home. But basically I would just, look at those properties and then do a, comparison by either going with an AirDNA model where you could pull research, look at intel on what is basically available in the area, what a property is currently rented for, or you could also go on to Airbnb itself and basically act as a guest and look at what's available, what your competition looks like, and how much they're cash flowing as far as those rentals go. And then essentially then just basically just crunch the numbers, just reverse engineer it based upon, at least a 50% occupancy.
And was 50% occupancy a good rule of thumb that you were hitting? Was that too high, too low?
I think 50% occupancy is, something is a good entry level. I mean, right now I'm averaging about 73% occupancy on my properties. But I think, being a Superhost certainly helps that. I believe that once you get into this business, obviously we live and die by reviews, just like realtors, right? So it's imperative that you put your best foot forward and make sure that your guests are getting that, experience that they're paying for, to ensure that you're getting those positive reviews. But once you get those reviews, it certainly helps when, individuals are looking to make a reservation. They're going to consider those who are Superhosts, prior to looking at a property that is not being run by a Superhost.
David had a question for you in regards to, are you furnishing the property on the arbitrage model, or is the owner doing that?
Initially, I was furnishing the property on the arbitrage method because, again, I didn't want to put too much concern on the investor partner as far as, outlaying of expenses. Essentially they're providing the shell, and then of course, I'm providing the furnishing and the housewares to ensure that the guests can have a comfortable stay. But as I've been transitioning out of that method, I do have two fully furnished furnishings essentially that I could utilize if I need to get an investor partner on board. I can certainly then negotiate a higher split to offset the expense of providing those furnishings. So, for example, if I were to provide all the furnishings as well as the furniture, I may look at a 60-40 split and maybe do that for the first year to basically recoup your investment on the furniture.
Makes sense. And for those that aren't living and breathing Airbnb world, Michaela asked, what is a Superhost? Tell us a little bit more about Superhost. Why is that important? How do you get it?
Superhost is basically, Airbnb will look at an individual host over the course of 90 days. You have to maintain at least a 4.8 star review out of 5 stars. You need to have 0 cancellations, and you need to respond to your guests within 24 hours. So if you're able to maintain that track record inside of 90 days, Airbnb will grant you Superhost status. I've been a Superhost from on the onset, and I've also have been maintaining that Superhost status since I've entered into the business.
And really that just, Michaela, gives you a little bit more credibility and authority for earning the trust of the guest, right? Or what would you add to that, Austin?
It also pushes you up in the algorithm too. So there's an algorithm that Airbnb uses, and by doing a Superhost, and when you get over 30 reviews, on my personal house, I have 275 reviews. So, I'm the first one on. So the more reviews you have, the more 5-star reviews, Superhost, you're going to be on the first page. And let me tell you something, people don't scroll. Okay. So you want to be on the first page, and that's the way you get booked a lot quicker.
I'm going to ask a selfish question here. How do I get on the first page?
You get reviews
of Airbnb. It just takes time.
Yeah.
It takes time. It gets reviews. The first couple of months, you're sludging ahead. Yeah. You're sludging through.
Are there any other algorithm hacks in
Airbnb? There's a Price Labs and Smart BNB.
And guys, write all of these resources down. We're going to throw a lot at you: websites, resources, tools, softwares, platforms. If you have follow-up questions, feel free to throw those in the chat. But there's a lot of resources here that are going to tie into running an Airbnb or hospitality business.
So I'll pull back the curtain a little bit for Airbnb. So what they want is they want an active user. They want an active host, right? So if you go on there and you change your prices on a daily basis, that means that you care about your listing. So that bumps you in the algorithm, right? So Smart BNB is a tool that auto messages the guest. Like you have a guest checking in 3 days before, it sends them a message, here's the check-in instructions. Well, on that app, it has a heartbeat. And when it pings the heartbeat, that means you're messing with your listing. So boom, there you go. They're like you messing with. So there's these little things, these little bitty tips that you can do. If you had yourself, you could set you a checklist and you do those things every morning, these little bitty things. And what the rule of thumb is, once you get over 30 bookings, or 30 reviews, you can pretty much write your ticket, but you got to get there, and you got to get there with good reviews. So, those first couple ones are super important, and you have to know how to not take every guest 5-alarm fire as the end of the world, but you have to sound concerned, right? And so it's this kind of psychology game you're playing with guests, right? And the greatest tip I ever heard in my life was, if you have a negativity about your property or the area, point it out. Because the last thing people want are surprises. They don't like surprises.
Yeah, we kind of took that advice from 8 Mile, right? Like, let me just be Eminem and rap about all the shit that I suck at already, and people are gonna, make fun of me for, and communicate and set expectations and manage expectations ahead of time, so that way they can't use it against you afterwards.
So, prime example, my area in San Antonio, when I started, was the worst area of town. The worst, like 6 blocks from downtown. I got some people that have commented about it, and it just got to a point where it was getting exhausting explaining myself that my neighborhood was the oldest neighborhood. It's moving up, like, the houses are just old. And so my wife just wrote a long thing that said, if you think that you're walking into a cookie cutter neighborhood in Omaha, Nebraska, this is not your neighborhood. These homes are old. This is what it is. And ever since I put that, not one comment.
I love that. Get in front of it. I love that. Let me shift gears over to my man Ernesto. Curious about how the heck have you been able to successfully buy, set up, manage, and scale your Airbnb business from California all the way in Indiana?
That's a good question. So for me, luckily, I have just a network of people in Indiana that allowed me to ship all of my items to their houses. So that was a huge help. However, other people that I know that are doing this at scale, they get creative with it. They'll fly in, they'll have everything from Amazon scheduled to arrive on a certain day. Sometimes these people are partnering with full-on apartment complexes. Guy that Austin and I both know, guy named Mike Shogren, he's partnering with commercial buildings that, one I think the misconceptions of what some people teach out there is that you can do this without kind of communicating to the owner or the property that you're actually going to be doing Airbnb, and you hide it by using verbiage such as, "Well, I'm going to be doing corporate rentals," or "Some of my friends are going to be staying here." That's a dishonest way to go about it. And eventually you will be uncovered. And just imagine being a guest showing up to that unit, you feel unwelcome because everybody in the apartment doesn't really know what you're actually doing. So to, I guess, circle back and more directly answer your question, for me, again, friends that allowed me to ship some of these things to their homes. But if not, you can fly in and just schedule everything to arrive basically when you're going to be there in town to furnish it. More and more property managers, my cleaner is Airbnb centric. So they actually would offer, they have services where they'll do the furnishing for you. You can send all the furniture to their office and they'll set it up for you. So you won't really know until you ask. But in some cases, the building itself will give you permission to just ship everything there. So there's really a lot of ways to do it depending on your situation.
How did you crunch some numbers, Ernesto, on whether or not, I know you've been buying and burring properties and kind of keeping them as rentals.
Yep.
You're not doing all Airbnb, right? You're doing some rentals, some Airbnb.
I have some long.
Yeah,
I have some long term. I just listed a flip. We're under contract right now, and then I'm doing the Airbnb.
So tell me why you chose to do Airbnb on one of your. What was it? The economics? Was it, hey, I just want to try this model and get a proof of concept out here that I can rinse and repeat?
Yeah, I mean, there's really pros and cons to each of those strategies, right? As you well know, fix and flip, that's lumps of cash. However, there are some tax disadvantages to flipping. Long-term rentals, a little bit more steady. You have, long-term cash flow. You have tax benefits. You have depreciation. You have appreciation. You have all those benefits. So depending on your long-term play, there's pros and cons there as well. One of the downsides to long-term rentals and kind of an incentive that you can use to kind of convince people to allow you to do this in your property. One of the biggest shifts that I had to undergo is that I'm not asking you for a favor to let me do Airbnb out of your property. Instead, I'm actually offering you an opportunity, because if you're the property owner, there's so many things that you save by doing Airbnb. So the person that I'm subleasing from, I was very direct with her. I posted a message in a huge email chat that I have with different people that invest in Indiana and that own properties in Indianapolis. And I actually had a ton of people that follow up, and they're like, "Can you please do this on my property?" Because for the owner, when you're renting a long-term rental, there's a lot of things that can go wrong and a lot of expenses that you incur. So if you place a new tenant, you have to pay usually first month's rent to place a new tenant. So in the case of my house, it's a 4-bed, 2.5 bath home that rents for $1,350. So if you're the property owner, you're paying. So over the course of a year, you would sacrifice the first month rent of revenue. So it's $1,350 that you're not collecting. Then you have to sacrifice 10% of every month. So over the course of a year, that's another $1,350 plus about another 13, I think 130. You end up being. She's saving by letting me do this. In the first year alone, she's saving about $3,000. On top of that, I'm cleaning her property for every single guest. I have an addendum in the lease to where if there's any repair that's under $200, I'm not even going to bother you. And so at the end of the day, in order for us to be successful, your home has to be in spick and span, immaculate condition. And as a homeowner, people are going to flock to that opportunity. So if anyone is out there kind of struggling and they don't have credibility and they're trying to find ways to convince someone to let them do this, the best way is to, again, I say shift your mindset. You're not asking for a favor. You're instead actually offering them an opportunity. In Steven's case, he's doing the co-hosting. These are people that probably have a vacation home. This is a home maybe in Tahoe or in the suburbs or Sacramento that, based off their lifestyle, they just so happen to have this second home. Do they want to have a long-term tenant there? Probably not, because they do want to use it every now and again. You can negotiate maybe how many times they get to block it for personal use. And just for managing their property, the Airbnb throughout the year, then you collect revenue on, in his case, that strategy. In most cases, if you're not doing furnishing, there's actually very little upfront cost to you. So I know that was kind of a roundabout way to answer the question, but and then your first question is how do I crunch the numbers? Like most guys, I use AirDNA because it's real data from real listings that are in the area that you're curious about. So you can pay $40 for a zip code, I believe, and it's $100 for the entire city. I say just pay the $100. You'll probably only need it when you're doing your analysis, and you'll have complete access to every listing on the market, so you can get real data and real feedback as to how the properties near you are performing, and then you can make a decision.
And do you have a rule of thumb of how much you're looking to make per property? And I'll send that question over to everybody else as well.
Yeah, for me, so I have to consider my utilities are about $500. We'll make the math very easy. So, utilities and subscriptions are going to be about $500. Have to remember with AirDNA, it does not include your cleaning. So depending on market rate for your cleaning, subtract, say on average, $7 a month. So make sure you back that up from your AirDNA numbers as well. And then after all that, if it doesn't at least double the rent, I'm probably not going to look at it, because you do have fluctuation, you do have seasonality. Some markets see it more than others. So there's going to be some months where it's going to be tight, and there's going to be months where you make a ton of it. In Austin's case, NCAA comes to town, or people that are renting and or doing Airbnb near Coachella, for example. That 1 month can potentially cover
the whole
3-4 months a year. So as long as you know that up front, then AirDNA is actually extremely useful.
Love it. Austin, what's your guys' rule of thumb on what has to be there economically for the numbers to pencil, and how are you crunching those numbers? And share a little bit more about how you use AirDNA for those because it's a very valuable resource. It's probably one of the most valuable resources.
Yeah, and the great thing is you don't even need to spend money. Really, you can just use the rent analyzer. It'll give you a basic outlook on the numbers, and it's free. So, at the end of the day, the problem with Airbnb is you can't throw a dart on the board and that's the answer. Like in multifamily, you say, it's the 1% rule. Well, we started off with 72 Airbnbs in San Antonio. Now we have 972. So that's in 2 years. So, that night per average went down a lot, right? So because I bought my properties and their equity plays, I don't care so much how much I cash flow, but typically what I'm seeing right now, especially in just Central Texas, you want to make about $600, give or take, after the bills are paid.
So you're
most
looking
of the time,
to net 600 per
net 600
Airbnb
at least to make it worth your while. It probably needs to be more around 1,000, but 600 to make it on the worst months. But what I want to tell everybody is there's so many different avenues, right? And the reason I say that is because you're running an Airbnb, you put an LLC on that property, and everything is a write-off. And when I mean everything, the electric bill, the toilet paper, the furniture, the water bill, everything is a write-off. So if you have an asset that you could make an extra $3,000-$4,000 a month, and you get to write the depreciation. I'm just saying for the year, $3,000-$4,000 for the year, and you get to write the depreciation off. That's a win. And there's so many little things, right, that you can do. But something I want to make very clear when you're picking your model is you need to be serious about what you need per month. Because think about it this way: if you had a property that you rented and it was fully furnished, and you cash flowed $750 a month, right? And you needed $4,000 to live, it's 4 properties. You don't need to grow to 30 to 40 to 50 units. That's a headache. But if you had 3 or 4 properties, maybe you could leave your job, right? Maybe you could retire early, right? And so that's what I've kind of focused on when I teach people what to do, is really think about how much you need and then work backwards, forwards.
I love that.
Because once you go from 5 to 10, you might as well, you just added on a lot. That's the difference in Airbnb.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to echo that for anybody, whatever your goal is, right? Whether it's buying a flip or buying a rental or buying doing Airbnb, what is the goal? What are you guys ultimately looking to accomplish? Is it a certain amount of passive income? Is it income and being able to grow your net worth? Is it income and more freedom, right? Because once you're clear on that, then you can kind of reverse engineer what's the best product that aligns with that. What's the best economic model that aligns with the product that aligns with the goal, right? And now you can start kind of working backwards and getting some clarity. And hey, like Austin said, I only need 5 Airbnbs or 4 Airbnbs that hit this number, and I can do that. And that's what'll give me permission to leave my job, right? Or whatever it may be.
I just want to give people hope, and because we just had a meetup on Tuesday, and Lucas, I know my boy down in Austin. He's got a place on South Congress. Now, granted, it's Austin, so let's calm down, and it's South by Southwest. But he is renting a place. He is netting netting in March, 8,500.
Oof.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah,
And
that's a good
so
month.
that's the possibility if you're in a town like, Austin or, Vegas or Denver, or that these events come to town, like Ernesto's saying, the convention center, this can happen for sure.
Yeah, let's talk about that real quick in regards to demographics. I know some of you, Ernesto had said, hey, they're a big convention center town, or we all have markets near us or within driving distance of us that we would call our vacation destinations, right? What are some of the demographics that you guys look for and take into account that can tip the hat off a little bit on some of the advantages or disadvantages, the seasonality, the downsides of things? I'll start with Steven on this one.
As far as me personally, I know there's a huge demand for Airbnbs in suburban areas. So with that being said, living in, Sacramento and being surrounded by suburban areas, when people travel into a city like Rockland or Roseville, if they're a family of 4 or 5 people, they'll have to rent, 1 or 2 and possibly 3 hotel rooms. And if you look at the cost for those hotel rooms at $120 to $150 per night, and you add all the additional fees, you can rent one of my houses for, 60% less than what it would cost you to get the something similar for, a couple of hotels. So that's typically what I look at. Is I typically look at, give me a city, look at some of the local hotels. What's the occupancy rate at those hotels? If they're fully booked, then it's just a huge opportunity if you're looking to potentially, get into this business model.
I love that. Austin, what would you say to that?
The thing that my new rally cry with Airbnb is different. You cannot think too crazy. You cannot go crazy and go 10 miles past that. There is a lady who's on Bigger Pockets who rents a potato in Idaho. Yeah, you heard me. It's a massive potato. And she gets $300 a night, and it's got 90% occupancy.
Because people are paying for the experience, right?
There's dudes in outside of Boston that have tree houses that get $800 a night, and they're booked solid for a year. So it's about the experience, right? And you're having, you want to be walkability. You want to be near water if possible. You want to be near multiple things to do, right? San Diego's great, but they are fighting the city, so but more importantly, you want to be in an area that supports it, not the other way around. There's no money in the world that's worth, because I've been there, there's no money in the world worth having your neighbors film your guests, right? That happened. This is a thing in San Diego. So
it happened to me too.
So Texas, Arizona, Florida, huge popular. The Smoky Mountains, they've been crushing it for 30 years out in Pigeon Forge and areas like that. Branson, Missouri, has been crushing it for a long time. These are the things that I look for. But something that I've noticed lately, take a city, let's say Austin, right? That's outlawed basically in the city. Just put one up in the surrounding city. And it's great. And so I'm not going to tell you where I do mine so you can get out of here. But what I'm saying is, but my houses in San Antonio are 6 blocks from downtown and 5 blocks from the convention center. So that's why they stay booked. So these are the things that you're looking for, but also something that's very important. Don't put your own thoughts on what you think your house should rent, because Airbnb is not normal. I hear people tell me all the time, nobody would ever rent that. And then they throw up a house in Temple, Texas, right in the middle of nowhere, and he's booked out for 5 months straight. So if it only costs you $3,000-4,000 to furnish it, give it a shot. You don't know, give it a shot, and you never know if it's not gonna really hurt your pocketbook.
Ernesto, you got any final? I know you're a man of data. So what are some of the things that those guys maybe didn't touch on that you look at from a demographic, or
I would say is Austin touched on the Smoky Mountains. I know, that place is so consistent with tourism year round that I don't know anyone, and I know two people personally that have homes and cabins in the Smoky Mountains and are doing really well. But what I guess want to pivot to is that even in areas where it may be outlawed, it still helps to understand exactly what is outlawed, because there are other people that are thriving with different strategies, even in areas where you might think it's not allowed. So, for example, there's a guy in Sacramento, actually, Al Williamson. Al Williamson, his strategy is short-term rentals, but he kind of teaches a strategy called the long shorts. So he targets people that travel for work. There's Facebook groups, there's large ones of traveling nurses. Like nurses are traveling year-round across the country, looking at 3 to 6 month stints. People that are in the military, for example. So this idea that you can only do, or that the opportunity is shut because there's some strict Airbnb laws doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And so, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought a little bit. Al Williamson is one guy. And then I know another guy named Jay Martin. Jay Martin does an annual real estate conference in Oakland. It's a great one. What he has done is he's still operating in the Bay Area. He has Airbnb units. But again, when you look at the verbiage in the law, it's not that Airbnb is excluded or that short-term rentals are outlawed. It's the stays under 27 to 28 days. And so what Jay Martin does is he targets people, and there's a ton of them, especially around Silicon Valley, that are interns that are here for a few months. The risk that you take is in California, anyone who occupies a home for more than 30 days, kind of regardless of the circumstance, all of a sudden has tenant rights. So he asked them for their proof of internship or work assignment up front, just to make sure that he doesn't have any issues. Knock on wood, he's never had that happen. So I guess what I really want to reiterate is just because there's Airbnb laws that are in place and they seem a little strict, really dig a little bit deeper. And within your market, is there still an opportunity? Do you live near a military base? Are you near a hospital? There's a lady up in Canada named Holly, I'm drawing a blank on her last name. She really cares about creating these homes for kids that are going to be, in long-term stays. So she decks them out to make them purposely child-friendly. There's themed rooms, there's Super Mario, there's Disney, and these families are flocking to her homes because these children need to get medical care for prolonged periods of time, and these hotels are just too expensive. So just because one opportunity looks like it may be shut, there's people that are getting really creative and making this work for them in their business.
I love that. Talk a little bit more about the trends and or the loopholes around laws and legislation and things that people should be aware of, but also maybe not discouraged by, or maybe they should be discouraged by it. What are some of the things that you guys could enlighten us on?
I would just say there's so many nuances, and a lot of times they're not as strict as they may seem. In some cases, they are. I know in San Francisco, for example, if it's still an owner-occupied home, you can still list it on Airbnb for a vast majority of the year. To Austin's point, he's in, or the city of Austin, Texas, itself has some really strict regulation. Well, what about some of the surrounding cities? I know, me living in the Bay Area, I can tell you from just conversations that I have with people, the city of San Francisco is pretty tech savvy, so they're probably going to catch you, and the fine is pretty steep. The city of Oakland has very little staffing to support any type of enforcement. The laws are not as strict. And an area that historically has done super duper well for Airbnb is the peninsula. So if anyone's familiar with the geography of San Francisco, as you make your way south and head into Silicon Valley, cities like Redwood City, Daly City, South San Francisco, those are cities that still have super high demand. There's a ton of tech workers in the area, people that are here for traveling for business, and those cities aren't nearly as strict. So every city is a little bit different. Is really the point that I'm trying to make.
Got it. Stephen, what are you seeing, brother?
To that point, I managed 3 properties in the city of Rockland. And so I got this notice from the city manager that they were going to restrict Airbnbs to 90 days inside of a calendar year. So when I got that notice, one of those 3 properties I actually owned. So I was thinking to myself, how am I going to be profitable only operating 25% of the year? So I immediately scheduled a meeting with the city manager and sat down with them. I said, look, I'm a responsible property owner. I not only own property in Rockland, but I have 2 short-term rentals. and I certainly want to stay in business, and this new ordinance is going to put me out of business. So, is there any workaround for this? I certainly, have a no party policy. These homes are, basically set up for families, et cetera, et cetera. The city manager looked at me and said, Stephen, I've never seen you before. I've never seen your name, never seen your properties. We're putting this ordinance in place to shut down bad operators, those who have parties, those who, have their neighbors complaining. So what I'm finding is a lot of the cities are, putting ordinances into place to, it's kind of a bit of a knee-jerk reaction. Obviously, Airbnb is not going away, but on that same note, we have to be, respectful property managers to ensure that, our neighbors are being, basically taken care of. A lot of these homes that we're managing as short-term rentals are just that. They're in neighborhoods, and we certainly don't want to, upset the neighbors. And, occasionally things will happen where there is an unauthorized party, and it's happened to probably all of us here on this call, where we'd have to go down there and shut things down. But I think you just need to educate yourself. Some cities also, charge a TOT tax. So if they're charging a transient occupancy tax, obviously they're in it for the income as well. And there's obviously a good income revenue that these cities can realize if they support, this Airbnb model. So it's something to think about as well.
Austin?
Yeah, 100%. So San Antonio is probably one of the most liberal cities because it's a tourist city. It's how it always has been. But there is a tax, and it's expensive. And, I go back and forth because they don't really enforce it that much. But I'm going to do my part to take care and make sure that I'm taking care of my stuff so I can never be questioned, right? And so I pay my taxes, and my brother-in-law pays his taxes, $2,000 a month for him because he's got huge Airbnbs. But we're looking at it going, we want to know if this ever comes down and it gets awkward and they start shutting people down, we want to make sure that we take care of our part. And I think that's just in life in general. I think that there are ways to make sure that you're doing the right thing. And by doing that, you can lay your head down at night and know that you're doing it right, and, I'll just give you the number that still blows me away. And I said it today to a person that I was helping coach Airbnb. There's like 3,100 legal Airbnbs in Austin, and there's 11,000 listings.
Jeez.
So, I mean, there's guys getting $2,000 a night for a 2-bedroom apartment, and they're having bachelor parties and pissing off the neighbors. And, and I just don't, I'd rather make, when I first started, it was, babe, we're sleeping in the car, get over it. We're taking all the money, right? And I think that you have to understand that there's a way to take in that money that cannot be so disruptive to your neighbors, right? Which is the number one person. But, something that I find joy out of that people don't look at, right? My neighbor lost his job. It's not he's an older gentleman. And since August of last year, he's taking care of all my Airbnbs and maintenance, and we're paying his bills. I get more thrill out of that than I do anything, no matter how many Airbnbs I have.
That's
awesome. That's really cool, right?
Yeah, it's definitely, there's a lifestyle aspect to Airbnb and hospitality, and being able to travel and understand that side of the world and the fence of, Airbnbs and traveling. And I know, at least in my perspective, for a lot of people, one loophole that's just going to get you around legislation or, regulations in general is going to be that if your zoning is commercial. So, for example, the hotel that I open in Tahoe, it's commercial, so we don't have to worry about that, even though they're coming down with laws in South Lake Tahoe because of a lot of these issues that the guys are mentioning in South Lake Tahoe, right? So looking at your zoning is going to be a big one that might give you some opportunity. I'm looking at another opportunity here in downtown that it is a 4-plex, but it's got special zoning for commercial. So technically I could go and Airbnb all 4 of those units. So you can get creative too and find some maybe undervalued assets that have some more upside based on laying this model over top of it. So that's something that I'm looking at. Ernesto, you had something to add to that, brother?
I did. Austin mentions the party thing, right? What happens if there's a party? How do you, like me being in Oakland, how do I know if there's a party going on? in my Airbnb. So just a couple things that I want to throw out there. Austin, feel free to correct me. You're at a much higher scale than I am, but Airbnb's coverage itself is rather limited as it relates to the structure itself. And so that is a concern. So really one of the more popular insurance providers out there for short-term rentals that's going to cover literally everything is a company called Proper Insure. They're underwritten by Lloyd's of London. I pay, I think it's $1,000 for the year. And if that house caught on fire, it's a $2,500 deductible. Most things are going to be covered by Airbnb. Someone breaks your TV, someone steals all your bedding. That stuff's going to be covered. But from a liability perspective, insurance-wise, Proper is a really, really good way to go. Really one of the more popular ways to do that in terms of like, how do you detect and how do you eliminate the possibility of a party? A couple things that I've learned, Airbnb actually outlaws, or it's prohibited to do what's called third-party booking. Let's say I use my account to book the stay, and you, Matt, show up, and you and your guest are there without me. If you detect that via like your Ring doorbell, third-party bookings are not allowed. Having a doorbell camera, of course, is going to help you ensure that you're monitoring the number of people that are coming in and out of your home. The lock that I use is an August lock, so it tells me how many times the door is being open and shut. There's a really popular device called Noise Aware. So Noise Aware is legal because it goes in the unit. It's going to record decibel meters, but it's not going to record a conversation. And because of that, it's legal. You can put 2 and 2 together, and that's exactly what I did. So it was a 19-year-old girl, new account, 0 reviews. I was a little bit nervous, but I said, you know what, I have plenty of insurance. And, you know, I find that probably over 50% of my guests so far have no reviews. So there's still a lot of people that are new to Airbnb. So yeah, it's, you know, some people, you know, worry about the saturation in terms of the number of units that are coming online, but there's still so many people out there that have never done Airbnb, and they hear about it from their friends. So there's still a ton of people out there that have never used Airbnb. But bottom line, between the Noise Aware and being able to record how noisy the house was getting, me looking at the doorbell camera and seeing 15 kids coming out of my house at 9 o'clock at night on a Friday, I was able to call the police, call Airbnb. They came over, squashed the party. I still got fully paid out. So if protecting your unit is a concern, and it should be, those were a couple tips that I would implement to make sure that nothing goes wrong.
I want to kind of go on this track for a few minutes and talk tools and resources for streamlining your process, whether it's a platform that you love using, whether it's physical resources in the asset that are valuable and useful. What are some of the things that you have utilized and found extremely invaluable in your Airbnbs, Stephen?
I'll start off with Nest. So having a smart thermostat, it basically allows you to turn off the air or turn off the heat. It basically is going to help you save money. So if someone checks out, there's no need to be cooling that house in Sacramento when it's 105 degrees outside. So with that being said, I also like smart locks. So there's a number of manufacturers out there. I use Schlag, and that basically connects to a hub. So it's important to have a home hub that will be able to talk to your devices. You can also be able to control lights, turn lights off, you know, so on and so forth. You can also, I also like, a good alarm system. So Ring has a good alarm system. I use spotlight cameras along the perimeter of the property, and a Ring doorbell camera. So I have visibility on all 4 sides of the property. You can actually cache that video and basically store that up to 30 days off site. So you can basically look back on that video if necessary. Let's see here. What else do I like to use? That's kind of it in a nutshell. I do use Noise Aware. Noise Aware works fairly well. Let's see here. And obviously a good smoke detector. So Nest also has a good smoke detector as well, and that is Wi-Fi enabled. So if there's I have a no smoking policy in my Airbnbs. And so, you know, I'll get a chime, you know, on my phone at 9 o'clock at night, you know, there's smoke in the house. So the first thing I do is I reach out to the guest. Is everyone okay? I got an alarm saying there's smoke. Oh yeah, everyone's fine. Well, then I know that there's smoking going on inside the property. And in my listing description, if there's smoking going on in that property, you will be fined $200 per day over the course of your reservation.
I love it. I love it. Austin, you got anything to add to that, brother, on resources, tools?
Those things are non-negotiable. It's not a question. Like, I ran my property from Spain. You have to have a keypad. You have to have a door. You have to have a camera on the door. This will save you so much money, because guests try to lie and you say, no, I'm sorry, I caught you on the thing. Now, when I say that, you can't have a camera inside the house, folks. Okay, so don't even try that. You will go to jail really quickly. It's not a good thing. But these are the things that you might say, I really don't want to spend that money, but it's saving you thousands and thousands of dollars, and more importantly, headaches.
Yeah.
If you're trying to hand off a key, they even have locks that generate. Matt knows this. Locks generate a new code for every guest. There's so many technology, and it's funny that Steven said that. I just found a new security guy through Instagram. Yeah, Instagram, and he just redid my whole house, and now I can control the AC for my house, and it's been a game changer. I mean, just to be able to schedule it and turn it off, that's a big deal. Keep those bills down, especially in Texas in the summer.
Yep.
But the keypad, the door, that noise aware is fantastic. These are the things that you have to have.
Yeah.
And it's just the price of doing business.
I would add to that too, in the sense of with this Airbnb model, right? It is one of those models where you oftentimes don't want to or expect to meet or talk with anybody whatsoever at the property, right? When you check into a hotel, you want the lobby and you want to be able to walk down the hallway and grab a bottle of water on your way to the elevator and go up to your room. With the Airbnb model, it is truly something that can be done remotely, also in an automated fashion, and you can create a really fun and cool and trendy and tech-driven experience for people, which is what we're doing up at the hotel. So that would be something that I would encourage people to do, because one, it's only going to continue to trend more in that direction, and the efficiencies that can be created through that, the human error that can be eliminated from that, and the bulletproofing of processes and keeping your overhead down can be something that the tech is really, really, really important. So having, these guys give me feedback on how I should be setting up the hotel was great. And you guys heard some of the exact resources that we're using.
And so something I want to make very important, and this is important, and God love my wife because she's smarter than I am. We had a weekend where I manage a couple houses and she manages a couple, or one that we own. And I noticed that I got like 10 messages on the weekend, and I looked over at her and I'm like, we've been at the spa all weekend and you haven't got one fucking message from your guests. What the hell? And she goes, yeah, because you're talking to the guests too much. You set the tone that they can talk to you too much. And by setting the tone, hey, thanks for booking. If you need anything, it's in the listing. And 2 days before that, we're going to send you the instructions sent. Hey, here's the checkout instructions. Hey, thank you for staying. Boom, it's done. My wife has not physically talked to the guest in 4 months.
That's awesome.
It's all automated.
Yeah. I think what you said there is just communication is key, managing and setting expectations ahead of time, key, having the tools and resources and answering their questions for them before they know that they're going to have those questions, and knowing where they can get those answers is going to be key for keeping those more labor-intensive things of hospitality down. Is there any other things that have been nightmares for you guys that could have been changed or you do differently or you would share with individuals? And as you guys think about the answer to that question, we got 5 minutes left on the call, guys. If you have any follow-up questions that you want asked and answered, I would take full advantage of it to pick these guys' brains. And also, obviously, these are all guys inside the Rich Life Academy and our Rich Through Real Estate family. So we're fortunate enough to have them generously sharing their time and their wisdom and their resources with us. But any war stories that you might?
I got tons, but I think everybody would get more value out of Matt, since you're newer to this.
Yep.
And you didn't start with the house. You decided that 14 rooms was a lot more way to go because you're Matty A. I'd love to hear your feedback, your experience so far. You were in the trenches right now.
Yeah, for sure. I would say be conservative on your numbers. You know, this romanticism of how sexy Airbnb can be and hitting your occupancy levels and, you know, hitting the ground running. Hospitality is just a different game. You could do 99 things right, and that one thing wrong fucks up their whole experience, right? Like you get a hair on the pillow, or the heater was too hot when they walked in and they were sweaty because of it, or whatever it is, right? Like you don't know. So I think it's, I'm rolling with the punches and knowing that hospitality is not passive income. Okay. So don't let anybody tell you that it's passive. It is not passive. It is one of those things that truly does have multiple layers to the onion. And if you can crack the code and you can streamline those things, there's some real upside. There's some real meat on the bone with this model. You got to be nimble. You got to be quick to respond. You got to be a great communicator. You have to have a phenomenal team. Thank God for people like Austin and Steven and Ernesto to be able to reach out and ask questions. So that's the beauty of having a good tribe around you. But I would just say you could knock it out of the park too, and someone still gives you a 3-star review and you have no idea why.
Why don't you? I want them to get the most value. Tell them about that day.
Oh, yeah.
Tell them about that day.
Yeah. So, so one of my mottos this year, and just in general, if you want to be successful in anything, it should be a whatever it takes mentality. And we were having some challenges up at the lodge, and one of our cleaners just bailed on us, and we had like a $4,000 weekend on the books, and we were basically like, well, I don't know. So I ended up driving 2.5 hours up to Lake Tahoe, and I did about 9 hours worth of laundry, and I was on my hands and knees cleaning every single room. And it was one of those things where, you know, I could have been, and I was actually really pissed off in the sense of this is way below my pay grade and da-da-da-da. But at the end of the day, know what you're getting yourself into. And you have to have the mentality of until you've earned the right to not do any of that shit, and you've got a great team and you've taken all those punches to the face and you got your teeth kicked in and you've worked through all those challenges. That is what this model requires in order to be successful at a really high level. And I think every single one of these guys, I've heard war stories from every single one of these guys in going through that, not just once, but multiple times. Now, of course, there's, again, a lot of meat on the bone. If you can master this model, you can dial in the right team, you can build in the right systems, because once you do that, the economies of scale and tech being on your side and platforms being on your side can really work to your favor in increasing the efficiencies, increasing the profitability. But it's definitely been a big learning curve. And I will just say this is, at the end of the day, short-term rentals, if you feel like you're late to the game, you are extremely, extremely, extremely early. This idea of short-term, especially with millennials and younger generations and the gig economy, being nimble, being flexible, sharing, it's only going to continue to pick up more and more momentum. And so I think you are going to see, as just like they're doing with marijuana right now, they're writing the legislation as they go. They're doing the same thing with Airbnb. So a lot of the new people in this space are kind of the guinea pigs. That can be discouraging. That can also be a great advantage in the long term of what we're talking about here. So with the bell curve coming up here, I think we're still all the way back here, and we got a lot of opportunity for growth and upside. I think that you're going to see a lot of governing bodies get on board with this because of the adoption that it's having, as well as, of course, the monetary component of it. And if you can, again, if you can map out based on what your goals are and what you want to accomplish and what you have to put into this, I think there's a lot of profit in there for a lot of people. And the other thing that I really love about it is if you're a true investor and you own the asset and you can create income from it, and you can create experiences for not only other people, but that you can share with your friends, your family, and locations anywhere in the globe, that's where this model gets kind of cool to me. So that's what I'm most looking forward to with this model. But I'm still in the trenches getting my ass kicked. So with that being said, I think there was one or two last questions. One question from David was, what would be an appropriate property management fee to charge or be charged for a full service company? Austin?
Steven's in California, so they like to get the full squeeze, but typically it's 20, 25%, 30%, and that's on the night, not the cleaning fees, the overall nightly rate. And that's full service though. Like that's everything.
Got it. Steven?
30%, or I'm not interested.
There you go. I like that. He's got his standards. Ernesto, would you add anything to that?
You have to. Yeah, either you could be Nordstrom's or you could be Marshall's.
Truth. That's very true. Ernesto, would you add anything to that?
I've seen it. I mean, there's a range. I don't know that there's a fixed number. It really kind of depends. 15 on the low end, 30 probably on the high end.
Okay.
But just remember, price is what you pay, price is what you pay, value is what you get. So you're offering these people an opportunity to be completely hands-off and not deal with tenant headaches. So don't undersell yourself.
Proper Insure was the insurance company that you mentioned?
Yep. Proper.insure is their website. They have a really cool kind of 5-minute explainer video. If you email them with questions, they're super responsive, and they're really kind of the gold standard in short-term rentals for insurance.
Cool. And quick rule of thumb, just real fast. How much would you say went into the upfront systems, the doorbells, the security cameras, the Nests, the everything?
Noise Aware is 200. Nest doorbell's about 150. Nest thermostat's got another 150. For me to furnish my 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath house, furnishing alone was about $6,000. I got a lot of stuff on sale. A person that, if anyone wants to follow, I think 2 people that provide a lot of free content that you can follow and have really, really valuable, actionable stuff. On YouTube, there's a guy named Airbnb Automated. He goes into like the specific mattresses that he uses. I mean, I use a mattress called it's like Zunia or something like that.
So I bought
Zinus.
I bought 130 of them. It's called Zenus.
Zinus. Yeah. Amazing beds, $350 a mattress, $300 for a queen mattress. And I learned that from him. Amazing Amazon reviews. So AirDNA Automated on YouTube, if you guys want to watch some videos by a guy who's doing this at a very, very high level and scale. And then there's a blog called optimizemyairbnb.com. A guy named Danny who used to work for Airbnb. He's written a book. He has a service. Yeah, great book. You'll learn a ton. Those are 2 free resources if you just do the blog and the YouTube video. A couple of resources that anybody on this call could get a lot of value.
Cool. Steven, what would you say upfront estimated cost rough?
Rough, between $5,000 and $7,000.
There you go. $5,000 and $7,000. Austin, you echo that?
Yeah. 3-bedroom. You're looking at installation, everything, $6,500 to $8,000. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 4 TVs, 4 beds. 2-bedroom, 1-bath. You're looking at $4,000 to $5,500, and then you can get a 1-bedroom done for about $3,000.
Yeah, I just want to quickly chime in. It was one of the more recent Bigger Pockets podcast episodes with Amanda Hahn, who writes all their tax strategy books. We spent a good 10 minutes there. It was one of the last 4 episodes, one of the newer ones. And bottom line is anything you dump into your Airbnb, rent, furniture, subscriptions, all tax deductions. So a lot of tax benefits on the short-term rental side.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to finish it off with this question. Jalen Diaz asked, if you started over from scratch, what would be the first 4 things you would do to start strong and on the right foot? Austin.
I would, and Santos put it, I saw it scroll across this thing. I think the true gangster is burying Airbnbs. And the reason I say that is because I'll use the numbers on my house that we just sold, okay? I bought it for 52. We put 45 in. The house is worth 185. Our mortgage was $400. All in bills were like $650. We did $2,000 to $3,000 on that property every month. So that baby was cash flowing because you bought it right. What I've seen is you can have a great property, but your nut is so big that you can have a great month and you still don't make money. So how much is your overall cost, and can you beat that? I think if you were to flip but hold, refinance, and then Airbnb, you could pay off that house pretty quick.
I like it. Steven, 4 things you would recommend to do from the beginning to start off strong.
Honestly, I think the first thing you need to do is really kind of have a conversation with yourself and see if this is going to be something that's going to be a fit for your personality.
Yeah.
You need to know whether or not hosting is something that is a fit for your personality. Do you want to put the time, energy, blood, sweat, and tears into furnishing, setting up a house for someone else to enjoy? And are you going to get joy from that? We were talking about money and how much money you could make, but most importantly, it's not really about the money. It's whether or not you're going to enjoy what you're doing day in and day out. If you do something that you love doing, you'll never work a day in your life. So first thing you need to do is determine whether or not this is going to be a fit for your personality subset. Secondly, Airbnb arbitrage. If you want to get in at a very low entry point, Austin was talking about buying a house and remodeling it and fixing it up. Not everyone has those type of resources. So I think maybe starting at an Airbnb arbitrage, talking to a landlord, a homeowner, and saying, hey, look, all your deferred maintenance is going to be included in me taking care of your property. And of course, being tech savvy, making sure that you're comfortable with technology and being able to run and host a property remotely from your smartphone. And fourth, most importantly, cash flowing. If you're not going to cash flow, you're going to be in trouble really quick.
Great tips. Ernesto, you got anything to add to that, brother?
4 things. The first one, similar to what Steven said, get clear on your why, and does this align with your why? If this strategy does align with it, then pursue it. If not, leave it alone. I drew a blank on the second one. It might come back to me. Secondly, the second one was decide on your strategy. Do you want to buy a place and then do Airbnb? Is it a place that you can see your family spending some time in? I know people do that in Orlando, mountain resort towns. Hey, I really want to own this property, but I don't want to carry the full mortgage while I'm not there. Perfect. Airbnb might be the strategy for you. Do you want to sublease from someone? There could be more meat on the bone for you, but there's more risk. Or do you want to do you just want to be a manager? There's a lot of people out there that have properties that would love to do Airbnb. They don't want to invest the time in managing it. Little do they know there's so many systems and tools that make this really not a huge time investment. So I would say number 2 is pick your strategy. Number 3 is analyze 100 properties so that when you see one that is a good deal, you know what a good deal looks like in terms of what the spread is. Otherwise, you're not going to know what a good deal and a bad deal is. And I would say 4th, get 100 no's. Email people, try to get them on the phone, visit their open house, call them. Hey, I see you have a vacancy. Can I speak with you about an alternate strategy that has so many more benefits, but I'd rather explain it to you in person. Get 100 no's, get comfortable with the no's, and understand why people are uncomfortable. You do those 4 things, and I think you'll be in good shape.
I love that. Gentlemen, appreciate your guys' time today. Appreciate everybody's time who took some energy and effort to jump on this call and invest in yourself. We appreciate you guys. And if you have any follow-up questions, be sure to post those inside the Rich Life Academy, and we'll keep this thread going. Airbnb is not going away. Hospitality is not going away. People will pay for experiences, and somebody's going to profit from it. So why not you? But I think you guys dropped some amazing gems today to give people a great foundation to start from, most importantly. So with that being said, everybody have a great rest of your week. We will be doing more of these calls each and every month inside the Rich Life Academy. And we look forward to seeing you guys on the next call. Take care.